Hello everyone and welcome to a short playthrough of Expedition 19 in No Man's Sky. I first start by logging into my main save to start the expedition and wave goodbye to my trusty dreadnought. I fly away in my personal ship and land on the space anomaly, ready to start this adventure. Since I can bring in some items, I pick up a warp core and a fusion igniter. The first choice is to power my hyperdrive and the second choice is going to be our ticket to a lot, and I mean a lot of units. Now you may ask, how does one little item get you so many units? Well, a single one sells for around 15 million, and through the magic of duplication glitches, we can create as many as we want for free. Stick around and I'll show you how you can print infinite money in No Man's Sky as well. I do want to clarify that this is the only thing I duplicated on this run, since units are very easy to get anyway. To preserve the intended expedition experience as much as possible, I collected everything else by hand and not with the duplication glitch. The goal of this expedition is to stop the ongoing war between the Travellers, that's us, and the Sentinels, who are scary robots that sometimes shoot you for mining and similar stuff. We're going to be doing this mainly by flying all over the place and signing our name to support ending the war. We're also going to build an awesome custom corvette, which is a mechanic added in the Voyagers update, but we'll cover that in more detail later. Now that we've got what we need, we're ready to start the expedition. We wake up on a pretty decent planet which seems to have a lot of sentinels, so I'll try my best to avoid them. We gather up some basic resources to start, like ferrite and carbon. This planet also has some gravitino balls, which I innocently pick up. This immediately puts me at a 3-star wanted level with the sentinels, and I am quickly swarmed. I make my daring and brave escape by digging a hole to hide in. I lose my wanted level, but the little flying robocops stick around the area. Then I take a look at the planet info and notice that the sentinel activity is set to aggressive. That is quite bad. This means that if they spot us, we'll only have a few seconds to leg it before they start attacking us. We also can't kill any unless we want to start a big sentinel fight. They also really don't like when you pick up gravitino balls, as we just saw. To avoid getting wrecked by more sentinels, I tunnel my way to the first objective, which is my ship. On the way, I find a buried tech module underground, which is pretty cool. I get to the ship, and just like in most No Man's Sky runs, it's not looking much better than a second-hand Honda Accord from 2007. Hopping in our ship, we get a mysterious transmission and a blueprint to craft something. It costs 30 chromatic metal, which is a refined high-tier metal, so we'll need a refiner. We hop back out and gather up some ferrite so that we can craft some metal plates. Then we place down a refiner by the ship. Now that that's sorted, we need some copper, which is what's refined into chromatic metal. We search around for it on the scanner and find some in the distance, so off we go. On the journey, I do a drive-by scan on this bird for some extra units, then terraform the copper out of the ground and into my pocket. We travel back and throw it into the refiner, giving us the chromatic metal we need. This allows us to craft the orbital uplink, which is a teleporty thingy. You know, it's a doohickey. Using it takes us up to the station in this system, giving us our first milestone, Link to the Stars. This is the first of 36 milestones that we will be completing on this expedition. It also gives me some basic ship parts and a mission radar station, which I will be using very shortly. We now get to the coolest thing about the Voyagers update, shipbuilding. I don't have that many parts right now, so the ship is pretty bare bones. She's a hunk of junk, but she's our hunk of junk. Definitely an improvement over our busted Honda Accord from earlier that probably didn't even start. We step into our new ride and place down the mission radar, completing the initial ship build. This also gives us the second milestone, ship architecture. We jump in the pilot's seat and hope that the engine starts. Okay, nice. I knew that would happen. While we're collecting early milestones, I put the ship into autopilot mode for a bit. This gives us the third milestone, cruising. 3 out of 36 is 1/12 of the way there, so buckle in and get ready for a lot more milestone hunting. Next, I find an already documented planet with salvage, so I head there and get my salvage on. While landing, I spot a cool point of interest, but it's guarded by a minotaur, so we're gonna have to avoid it. I land far enough away to not be seen, and using my scanner, I find a salvage area about 500 units away. I terraform down a bit and find some salvage scrap, which for some reason I think I need to mine with my gun. This is a great strategy if you want to waste time and ammo, but not very useful otherwise. I still get the necessary 3 out of the 5 Corvette parts from it, so no harm done. We find another salvage spot 300 units away, and this time I mine it properly and get another 2 Corvette parts, netting us the salvaging milestone. When I returned to my ship, I also noticed that I got a very expensive item from the salvage as well as the ship parts. We also need to repair the ship's hyperdrive because it's balked. To fix it, we need 63 chromatic metal and 3 microprocessors. The microprocessors are going to cost us 120 chromatic metal and 3 carbon nanotubes, which themselves cost 150 carbon. So overall we need 150 carbon and 183 copper. I go away for a bit to farm all of that and eventually craft them and fix the hyperdrive like a true professional. I fly back to the space station and make my final preparations before our first hyperjump. I also go back into the ship editor to apply the new ship parts I got from salvaging, giving us a slightly larger ship. Also, I remember to sell the expensive item, netting us a cool 750,000 units. This makes me realise I can quickly finish another 3 milestones, which are: take a picture of the ship with the camera, do a spacewalk from the ship, and destroy 40 asteroids. We're now at 7 out of 36. There's also a few I need to be looking out for, which are visiting a lush world, discovering 3 creatures on a dissonant world, and claiming a multi-tool from a harmonic camp. There is no lush planet within our starting system, so I warp towards the first signature location and don't quite have enough hyperdrive range to get there in one, so I warp halfway. This gets us our 8th milestone, which is to repair the warp drive and warp once. Upon entering the system, I come across an interceptor. Funnily enough, there's a milestone to take down 3 interceptors, and destroying this one will cause 2 more to spawn. As expected, another 2 spawn, but one doesn't seem to immediately aggro me, so I can pick off the first one and then take down the third one separately. This gets us milestone 9 out of 36, we're a quarter of the way there. Around the same time, the travel 100 killer units milestone also pops, so we're actually at 10 out of 36. After taking out the 3rd interceptor, I make my escape to the anomaly and grab the stuff I brought into the start of the run. I then use the duplication glitch to duplicate the fusion igniter. The way this works is basically you have to place the fusion igniter into a refiner, then place another refiner over the top of it, then delete both refiners, and it will give you the contents of the first refiner twice. This is extremely useful for us in this run, as every time we dupe the fusion igniter, we sell each for around 15 million units. If you want to learn more about this dupe glitch, and learn how to duplicate nanites, I've got another video dedicated to that, which you can find on the card above and linked in the description. After leaving the anomaly, I scan a new planet and realise it's a dissonant world with 71 bases on it. I land near a base called Ultra V Depot, which is a respawn point of a Sentinel ship. While I'm here, I scan 3 dissonant creatures, which gets us the 11th milestone and an echolocator. I leave the dissonant world and find a new planet, which is marked as viridescent. These planet types count as lush planets, so landing there nets us milestone 12 out of 36. We also get some fishing gear from this milestone, so I farm some carbon to get bait. I fish 3 fish to get milestone 13, which involves fishing fish. Fishy. After leaving the fish planet, I use the echolocator to find a harmonic camp, which is on a different planet, and I find a terminal where it gives me a riddle. 7 minus 2, 3 plus 8, and 11 plus 5. I initially type in 5, 11, and 15 before realising I can't do maths and changing the 15 to a 16. The terminal gives me a new multi-tool and we complete milestone 14. But there's a storm brewing, so we run to the ship to get into the dry and take the time to swap over some multi-tool modules. This milestone also gave us a few modules and multi-tool slots, so I gladly add those in. I then use the camp to scan for dissonant spikes, and it takes me to the site of a Sentinel ship. I take from it what I can before getting attacked by a dissonant Sentinel, which is bad, but we have a milestone to kill 8 of these. Next I scan for an Atlantideum crystal vein and harvest a lot of it, then decide to make my base so I can come back here easily. While farming for base building materials, I find another dissonant Sentinel and battle with it until I get to a 3-star wanted level. I'm able to kill just enough of them before my shield breaks, so I run away and trigger milestone 15 out of 36. This gets us a lot of units and a lot of nanites. I finish my new base and add an unpowered teleporter to get back if needed. Next, I duplicate the super cool expensive item again for even more units. Then get in my ship and travel back to the space station. What we're looking for now is a hyperdrive upgrade, and we can use the nanites from earlier to get one. I end up buying one A class and one B class upgrade, which gives us a higher range and better efficiency of the hyperdrive. I return to the Corvette and buy 3 habitation modules, 2 engines, 2 weapons and 2 reactors. This requires a slight ship redesign which triggers another 3 milestones. 16, which is to have 3 reactors, 17, which is to have 3 guns, and 18, which is to have 3 habitation modules. We also get an anomaly detector, which we will use for completing another milestone later. This reminds me, I have 2 more ship milestones to complete. The first one is to cook fish on the Corvette's nutrition unit. I cook the 3 fish which we caught earlier from the fishy planet, and then place them in the ingredient storage, which gives us milestone 19. The other is to grow plants using the living wall on the ship, which is easy but will take some time. I look through my inventory for the easiest seed to plant, which is the Gravitino host. This costs 25 chromatic metal, 120 silver, and 25 magnetized ferrite. Next, I warp to the space station to get milestone 20, which is the first signature stopping the war between the Travellers and the Sentinels. After this, we buy a bunch of resources and break a few asteroids for some extra silver. I leave the space station and find a hexagonal planet, and if you're not aware, this is a planet where everything is made out of hexagons, except me. I'm not a hexagon, or at least, I think I'm not. While we're here, I pick up some silver and some gold and find this weird deposit I don't recognise. Turns out it's another way to get fungal mold, so I ignore it. I farm some other resources, and this allows me to build a second living wall on the Corvette. This increases the total amount of plants to 4. At this point we also have the resources needed to craft the seeds, so we place those down as well. Then I realise that the advance move milestone requires us to have 6 maneuver modules. Because of this, I head back to the space station and make some modifications, and this gives us milestone 21. We then set off back into space and warp towards the second signature location. We take a brief detour to check out the planets, then go to the space station to give our signature, but not before being rudely interrupted by a Fortnite update. Anyway, this gives us milestone 22. I head back to the ship and the plants are ready for harvest, so I harvest them and therefore complete half of the harvest milestone. Next we warp directly to signature location 3, write down our signature, and that completes phase 3. We are now at 23 out of 36 milestones completed. I continue this streak and warp towards signature 4, but I come across some pirates attacking a freighter. I try and help, but presumably fail or something like that, and it despawns. I then warp again to do the 4th signature, giving us milestone 24 out of 36. This also gets me a few shield parts which are needed for a milestone, but I only get 2 of the 3 required, so I trade some parts for the 3rd and then put them on the Corvette, netting us milestone 25. I also realise that at some point I will have to get to an outlaw station to smuggle goods, so I build a conflict scanner in the last free slot of the ship. I then check the plants and the second batch has now grown, so I harvest them. This finally gives us the plant milestone, which is 26 out of 36 and also completes phase 2. I warp to the final signature point and sign my name for the 5th and final time, which gives us milestone 27. I also can now re-interact with the terminal to get another milestone. This is for the community achievement for getting enough signatures to stabilise relations between the Traveller and the Sentinels. This then gets us milestone 28. Only 8 to go. I fly out of the station and find a base that's called Sentinel Tower, which saves us about an hour or so, as it's very difficult to find one right now. Big thanks to the player that made this base. If you don't already know, Sentinel Towers deactivate every Sentinel on the planet and have a few nice rewards in them. They're quite difficult to find normally, and there is a milestone in this expedition to deactivate Sentinels. I take a second to admire this beautiful base, then deactivate the tower for milestone 29. I then break the 3 smaller towers around the main tower and get some Pugnium and a hardframe engine. Next I decide that my jetpack is probably good enough to try skydiving, which is another milestone. It definitely is, but I noticed that it takes absolutely ages to fall down. That being said, this is good because we need to be falling for 60 seconds. This gets us milestone 30 out of 36, and the end is in sight. I then use the anomaly item to find an anomaly, which is a messenger of the Atlas. This completes milestone 31 and gives us an emergency signal scanner. I can use this to gain access to a derelict frigate, which in my opinion is the best and most interesting bit of content that Hello Games has added. Unfortunately, I get a really easy layout with minimal threat, but oh well. I go through the derelict and find the captain's log and the crew manifest, then quickly get to the fabricators, which are the final location. Here you can ask the fabricators to make an upgrade for your frigate, or an item if you don't have a frigate, or a bunch of nanites. I choose the nanites and get the milestone for completing the derelict, which is 32 out of 36. This also completes phase 5, which funnily enough gives me a sentinel tower chart, which would have told us the location of a sentinel tower, but we've already found one, so oh well. I go back to the space station and sell off the frigate data for some tainted metal. This is a resource from the derelict update which I can use as a currency, so I trade it in for a cool helmet and a decal. I then search for a pirate system to warp to, as that should get me 3 of the last 4 milestones. I warp there and head to the space station, which gives me a milestone of visiting an outlaw system, milestone 33. This gives us an emergency warp blueprint which we can use to get another milestone. I head to the contraband agent and undergo a smuggling run to complete milestone 34 out of 36. This gives me 3 Vikine statuettes and 3 aquatic treasures, which I will gladly take home to my main account when I'm done. I then use the emergency warp feature, which completes milestone 35 out of 36 and technically completes phase 4 and the whole expedition. Except we're missing one optional milestone. For this I have to hitchhike with another traveller on their Corvette. Fortunately, my wife has a copy of the game, so I forced her to complete the first few milestones to get the Corvette. We then met up on this planet in the second system and she flew me around in her Corvette for a bit. This got me the 36th and final milestone, thus completing the expedition. I waved goodbye before she logged off to continue bashing her head against the wall that is Hollow Knight. I fly myself back to the anomaly and make my way over to the terminal to finish the expedition. The terminal shows me the stats for the run and I reflect on what we have achieved today. We stopped a war between the Travellers and the Sentinels, we made a really cool ship, and experienced lots of new stuff in the game, and most importantly, we made a lot of units. Thank you all for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you made it this far, please comment down below what your favourite world type is in No Man's Sky. Mine is probably the lush planet biome type, and I also have one called Second Earth, which has the infested subtype, so has those massive worms. It is also home to multiple bases on my main account. Thank you again for watching until the end, and with that I will say, happy exploring, traveller.